Title: At a luxury spa in Paris, I surprised my wife with a couple's massage. When the masseur walked in, he was the man she'd been secretly meeting for months. Paris, the city of love, seemed like the perfect escape for Michael and his wife, Jessica. After months of strained conversations and growing distance, Michael thought this trip could reignite the spark they once had. The Eiffel Tower glittered in the background as they strolled along the Seine River, but Jessica's laughter felt forced, her gaze often shifting to her phone. Michael, determined to make this trip memorable, refused to dwell on the unease creeping into his thoughts. Michael had planned every detail meticulously. From their stay at the Four Seasons Hotel Georges Fifth, with its opulent suites and stunning views of the Champs-Élysées, to intimate dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants, every moment was crafted to bring them closer. Yet Jessica's frequent excuses to take a call or her nervous glances at her phone during their romantic strolls didn't go unnoticed. Hoping to create a moment of connection, Michael secretly booked a luxurious couple's massage at Le Jardin des Sens Spa, a hidden gem in Paris known for its exquisite ambiance and world-class masseurs. This surprise was meant to be the highlight of their trip, a gesture to show Jessica he was still invested in them. The spa, nestled in the heart of Montmartre, was the epitome of serenity, with lush indoor gardens, calming scents of lavender and eucalyptus, and soft classical music echoing through its halls. As Michael led Jessica into the spa, he couldn't ignore her nervous energy. She fidgeted with her scarf, avoided his eyes, and kept checking her phone, offering excuses about needing to update their daughter back home in Los Angeles. To Michael, it was just another sign of the distance growing between them, but he brushed it aside, clinging to the hope that this massage session would help them relax and reconnect. Unbeknownst to Michael, the pieces of a larger puzzle were already falling into place. Jessica's behavior, her secretive phone calls, her reluctance to stick to the itinerary, was more than just nervous energy. As they walked into the candle-lit massage room, Michael felt a surge of optimism. But there was an underlying tension in the air, like the silence before a storm. The ambiance was perfect, the spa staff welcoming them warmly. But as the masseur entered the room, Michael's world shifted. A man in his mid-30s with a confident smile and familiarity in his eyes stepped forward. Jessica's face froze. The masseur, Pierre, was not just any stranger. He was the man Jessica had been secretly meeting for months. This moment, unexpected and heart-wrenching, would become the catalyst for everything that followed. The perfect Parisian escape Michael had planned was about to unravel in ways he could never have imagined. The luxurious entrance of Le Jardin des Sens Spa in Montmartre enveloped Michael and Jessica in an atmosphere of serenity. As they walked on the gleaming marble floors, surrounded by fragrant lavender blooms and the soft melody of Debussy's Clair de Lune playing in the background, Michael felt a surge of satisfaction. His months of planning had led to this moment, a chance to rekindle their fractured bond in the most romantic city in the world. He couldn't help but glance at Jessica, hoping to see her delight at the thoughtful surprise. When Michael turned to her and announced the couple's massage he had secretly arranged, Jessica froze for a moment, her face betraying a flicker of hesitation. "Oh, wow, this is unexpected," she stammered, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She quickly recovered, placing a hand on his arm and saying, "You always know how to surprise me." But Michael couldn't shake the feeling that her reaction wasn't genuine. He had expected laughter, maybe even a kiss of gratitude, but instead she seemed guarded, nervous even. Jessica's odd behavior didn't stop there. As they were escorted through the spa's lavish halls, past glowing candles and cascading water features, her steps felt unsteady, and she clutched her robe tightly. When they reached the waiting lounge, Jessica kept glancing at the ornate clock on the wall. "Are you okay?" Michael asked, his tone filled with genuine concern. "Yeah, I'm just overwhelmed, I guess," she replied with a weak smile, avoiding his gaze. Sinking into the plush chairs of the waiting area, Michael tried to reassure himself. Perhaps Jessica was simply embarrassed about the idea of a shared massage. Public intimacy wasn't exactly her style, after all. He noticed her fidgeting with the hem of her robe, her fingers twisting the fabric anxiously. To him, it looked like nervous energy, a natural reaction to stepping out of her comfort zone. But deep down, a shadow of doubt lingered, a quiet voice whispering that something wasn't quite right. Quite right. Still, Michael convinced himself to let it go. This was supposed to be their time to heal, to reconnect, to leave behind the growing tensions that had plagued their marriage. The spa's opulence and tranquility were everything he had hoped for, and he was determined to make the most of the experience. Little did he know, Jessica's nerves weren't about the massage itself. The calm elegance of the spa was about to be shattered, as the true reason for her unease would soon walk through the door. As Michael and Jessica were escorted into the softly lit massage suite at Le Jardin des Cents Spa, the air between them grew heavier, despite the soothing ambiance. The room was a picture of tranquility. Warm candlelight flickered against the pale beige walls, and the faint scent of jasmine mixed with lavender lingered in the air. Two massage tables, draped in pristine white linens, were arranged side by side beneath an elegant crystal chandelier. Michael glanced at Jessica, hoping her mood might shift with the intimate setting. But she remained stiff, her fingers gripping the edge of her robe tightly. Jessica's unease became more apparent as the moments stretched on. She avoided eye contact, her eyes darting to the entrance every time footsteps echoed down the hallway. Michael, still trying to salvage the moment, teased, "Relax, Jess. It's just a massage. It's supposed to calm you, not make you jittery." She forced a laugh, her tone wavering as she replied, "I know. I guess I'm just not used to this kind of luxury." A knock at the door interrupted their conversation, and a soft-spoken spa assistant entered, informing them that their masseurs would be arriving shortly. Michael thanked her, turning to Jessica with a reassuring smile. "See? Nothing to worry about. Let's just enjoy this." He moved closer, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. For a fleeting moment, he thought he saw guilt flash across her eyes, but she quickly turned away, muttering something about needing a glass of water. Moments later, the door opened again, and a tall, well-dressed man stepped inside, exuding an air of confidence. He was introduced as Pierre, Jessica's masseur. Michael glanced at him briefly, his mind focused on the relaxing session ahead. But when he turned back to Jessica, her reaction froze him in place. Jessica's face had gone pale, her hands trembling as she stared at Pierre like she'd seen a ghost. Pierre, on the other hand, wore a faint, knowing smirk, a look that sent a chill down Michael's spine. "Bonjour," Pierre said smoothly, his tone too familiar, as though addressing an old acquaintance. Michael's stomach churned as he turned to Jessica. "Do you know him?" he asked, his voice laced with suspicion. Jessica stammered, "No, of course not. I mean, he just looks familiar." Michael's mind raced, piecing together the inconsistencies from their trip, the secretive phone calls, Jessica's constant nervousness, and her distracted behavior during their romantic Parisian outings. Pierre's smirk deepened, and Michael's chest tightened with the sudden realization that this wasn't a coincidence. The tension in the room was palpable, the serene spa atmosphere now feeling suffocating. The truth hovered just out of reach like a shadow lurking in the corners of the room. Jessica's body language screamed of discomfort, while Pierre's confidence suggested he held a card that Michael was yet to see. What was meant to be a romantic, healing moment for their relationship had turned into a confrontation brewing beneath the surface. As Michael's eyes darted between Jessica and Pierre, the cracks in his marriage began to widen, threatening to reveal secrets he wasn't prepared to face. The tranquil atmosphere of Le Jardin des Saints Spa shattered the moment the door swung open. A tall, charismatic man with a commanding presence and a charming smile stepped into the room. He wore the spa's signature uniform, but his confident stride and piercing gaze seemed out of place in the subdued luxury of the setting. Michael, sitting on the edge of the massage table, glanced up with a polite nod, ready to introduce himself. But before he could speak, his attention was drawn to Jessica's sudden and drastic change in demeanor. Jessica's previously fidgeting hands froze mid-motion, her knuckles white as she gripped the edge of her robe. Her face drained of color, her mouth slightly agape, as though she had seen a ghost. Michael furrowed his brows, watching her wide eyes lock with the masseur's. It was just a fleeting moment, but the look they exchanged carried the weight of unspoken secrets, shock, recognition, and an unmistakable pang of guilt. Michael's stomach churned. He had seen Jessica flustered before, but never like this. The air in the room grew thick with tension, a stark contrast to the lavender-scented calm that surrounded them. His instincts screamed that something was wrong. Trying to break the heavy silence, he forced a casual tone and asked, "Do you two know each other?" His question was simple, almost rhetorical, but the effect it had was profound. Jessica's reaction was immediate. She averted her gaze, stammering, "No, of course not. I've never seen him before." But her voice lacked conviction, her words rushed and unsteady. Meanwhile, the masseur, introduced moments earlier as Pierre, hesitated before responding. His smooth demeanor faltered, and for a brief second he seemed unsure of what to say. Finally, he answered, "No, sir. First time meeting." But his delivery was flat, devoid of the confidence he had walked in with. Michael's eyes darted between Jessica and Pierre, the unease in his chest growing heavier with every passing second. Jessica shifted uncomfortably in her seat, avoiding Michael's gaze as she fidgeted with the tie of her robe. Pierre, now visibly tense, moved toward the massage table, attempting to mask his discomfort by adopting a professional tone. The room, designed for relaxation and healing, had become a stage for mounting suspicion. Michael's mind raced, replaying every odd moment from their trip. Jessica's nervous glances at her phone, her frequent excuses to step away, and now this unsettling exchange. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a coincidence. His gut told him there was a deeper story behind the shared glance between his wife and the masseur. The tension was palpable, like the stillness before a storm. As Michael stared at Jessica, he could see the cracks in her facade growing, her composure unraveling under the weight of her own guilt. Pierre, too, seemed unable to meet Michael's piercing gaze. The once idyllic spa day Michael had planned to reconnect with his wife was now veering into uncharted territory, setting the stage for a confrontation that could shatter everything he thought he knew. As Pierre stepped out of the massage suite, Michael sat in a heavy silence, his mind racing to piece together the puzzle that had been forming throughout their Paris trip. The clues, previously scattered and dismissed, now came into sharp focus. Jessica's distant behavior, her frequent calls during romantic dinners, her unease about the itinerary, and now her pale, guilty expression when Pierre walked in. The luxurious spa, with its soft, lavender-scented air and marble elegance, now felt suffocating, its tranquility mocking the storm brewing inside Michael. Michael's sharp instincts refused to let this moment slide. He turned to Jessica, his voice calm but carrying the weight of suspicion. "What's going on, Jessica? Don't lie to me." His words sliced through the tension, and for a moment, Jessica tried to hold her composure. "Nothing's going on," she said, her voice trembling as she avoided his gaze. But Michael wasn't buying it. Her fidgeting hands and faltering voice only fueled his determination. "This isn't adding up," he continued, his voice firmer now. "Your calls, your constant excuses, and the way you froze when he walked in. What aren't you telling me?" Jessica tried to deny it, shaking her head, but Michael's relentless questioning chipped away at her defenses. Finally, the facade broke. Tears welled up in Jessica's eyes as she whispered, "I didn't mean for it to happen." Her voice cracked, and the confession spilled out like a dam bursting. She admitted that her so-called work trips over the past few months had been an elaborate cover for secret meetings with Pierre. She spoke of how she'd met him during a prior spa visit in California and how their connection had spiraled into something she couldn't control. The weight of her betrayal hung in the air, suffocating any hope of reconciliation. Before Michael could fully process the betrayal, the door opened, and Pierre walked back in, holding a tray with aromatherapy oils. He stopped mid-step, sensing the charged atmosphere in the room. Michael's piercing gaze turned toward him, his voice deceptively calm. "You can drop the act. She's already told me everything." Pierre's confident demeanor dissolved in an instant. His jaw tightened, and he stood frozen, the tray trembling slightly in his hands. The tension was electric, as the spa's soothing background music became an ironic contrast to the chaos unfolding within. Jessica buried her face in her hands, sobbing quietly, while Pierre struggled to find the words to respond. Michael's calm exterior belied the storm of anger and heartbreak raging inside him. He stood, towering over the now speechless Pierre, and added, "I trusted her. And you knew exactly what you were doing." His words were heavy with both contempt and disappointment. The once idyllic Parisian spa day had transformed into a battlefield of betrayal, setting the stage for decisions that would forever change the course of their lives. Michael stood in the spa suite, the weight of Jessica's betrayal still fresh as his piercing gaze locked onto Pierre. The room was thick with tension, the calming lavender scent and soft music now a cruel backdrop to the chaos within. Michael's calm yet stern voice shattered the silence. "You've been meeting my wife for months. Care to explain yourself?" Pierre, visibly rattled but attempting to maintain his composure, set the tray of oils down with shaking hands. "It wasn't serious," he began, his French-accented voice faltering under Michael's glare. "It meant nothing. We didn't think it would hurt anyone." His words were meant to diffuse the situation, but they only added fuel to the fire. Michael's expression hardened as he cut Pierre off. "Nothing? Months of lying and sneaking around, and you call it nothing?" The accusation hung in the air like a thunderclap, drawing Jessica further into her spiral of silent sobs. The escalating voices pierced through the serene ambiance of the luxury spa, drawing the attention of the staff. A young receptionist, accompanied by a manager in a tailored suit, softly knocked on the door before stepping in hesitantly. "Pardon me," the manager said in a professional tone, "but we must ask you to keep it down for the comfort of our other guests." His calm demeanor clashed with the heated emotions in the room. Michael exhaled deeply, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. With a cold, resolute tone, he turned to Jessica. "We're done here. Enjoy the rest of the massage. Alone." His words cut through the room like a dagger, leaving Jessica stunned and speechless. Without another glance, Michael brushed past the staff and strode out of the suite, his footsteps echoing on the polished marble floors. As he exited the spa, the cool Parisian air hit his face, offering a momentary reprieve from the suffocating emotions inside. The Eiffel Tower loomed in the distance, its twinkling lights mocking the shattered trust that had brought him to this moment. Michael's heart was heavy, weighed down by a mix of anger, heartbreak, and the painful clarity that his marriage was beyond repair. Walking away, Michael resolved to prioritize his own self-respect and sanity over trying to salvage a relationship built on lies. Each step he took away from the spa felt like a step toward reclaiming his dignity. The city of love had turned into a city of heartbreak, but as he disappeared into the Parisian streets, Michael knew he deserved better. As Michael wandered aimlessly through the cobbled streets of Paris, the weight of the evening settled over him like the city's soft winter fog. The Eiffel Tower sparkled in the distance, its beauty mocking the turmoil in his heart. What was supposed to be a romantic getaway, a chance to mend the fractures in his marriage, had instead shattered it completely. The luxurious spa, the thoughtful surprises, and even the magical allure of Paris itself had only served to highlight how far he and Jessica had drifted apart. Michael's thoughts spiraled as he pieced everything together. The secretive phone calls, Jessica's distant glances, and her over-the-top excitement about work trips to New York. This betrayal wasn't born overnight. It had been festering beneath the surface for months, maybe even years. Paris hadn't created the cracks in their relationship. It had simply illuminated them under the harsh light of reality. Sitting on a quiet bench overlooking the Seine River, Michael reflected on how much he had ignored the warning signs. Jessica's hesitation when they first landed in Paris, her constant excuses, and the unease he had dismissed as travel nerves. Each moment now felt like a clue he had chosen to overlook in his desperate attempt to hold on to something already slipping away. For the first time, Michael allowed himself to acknowledge the truth. This betrayal wasn't just about Jessica and Pierre. It was about a marriage that had been eroding long before they set foot in Paris. Jessica's affair was merely the final act of a relationship built on shaky foundations. As the cold breeze carried the distant hum of Parisian nightlife, Michael made a decision. He wouldn't let this betrayal define him. The trip to Paris, though painful, had given him the clarity he needed to move forward. Not with Jessica, but with himself. He had tried to rekindle a flame that was already extinguished, but now he understood that his worth wasn't tied to saving a broken relationship. Michael stood up, taking one last look at the glittering Eiffel Tower, and began walking toward his hotel. The city of love had shown him the harsh realities of betrayal, but it had also gifted him a new resolve to rebuild his life, this time with honesty and self-respect at the center. Thank you for being a part of this story with me. If it moved you, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to Narrative Stories. I've noticed many of you who enjoy